At this point, we'd like to invite my grandmother, Mrs. Annette Lantos, and Secretary Albright to come forward. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand and join me in congratulating the recipient of the 2013 Lantos Prize for Human Rights, Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Thank you, and first to the extraordinary Lantos family, this is indeed a great honor and an immense personal pleasure to have Tom Lantos around my neck. He was often in my office or on the phone asking me what I was going to do about something or offering to partner with me on an issue of human rights. And as all of you who are here know, because you recognize the significance of the work that he did during his public career. He was a man of great courage and compassion, and he had a wonderful partner in his wife, Annette, and a fabulous support system with his daughters, Katrina and Annette, and their families. So I think we should give a round of applause to the entire Lantos family here today. As Tamika said when he began the proceedings, we meet on the day after the loss of a giant among us, someone who, by the power of his example, demonstrated unequivocally how each of us can choose how we will respond to those injustices and grievances, those sorrows and tragedies that afflict all of humankind. Nelson Mandela will be remembered for many things. He will be certainly remembered for the way he led, his dignity, his extraordinary understanding, not just of how to bring democracy and freedom to his beloved South Africa, but how important it was that he first brought freedom to himself. As I spent time with him, starting in 1992 until just in the last year and a half, I was always struck by the extraordinary depth of his self-knowledge, of his awareness about how hard it is to live a life of integrity, of service, but to combine within oneself the contradictions that he lived with, a lawyer and a freedom fighter, a prisoner and a leader, a man of anger and of forgiveness, has so captured the hearts of people not only in his own country, but as we are seeing with the outpouring of response to his death, people around the world. I only hope that as we both mourn and celebrate the passing of this universally recognized and beloved figure, that we remember he became that through an enormous amount of hard work on himself. The story's been told several times now in the coverage that I've watched of his passing about how he invited 3 of his prison guards to his inaugural festivities. I was there as a part of the American delegation for the inauguration, and I was there at the luncheon that was held back on the grounds of the president's house that had transitioned from the morning where I had breakfast with President de Klerk to where I had lunch with President Mandela. And as he looked out at the large crowd gathered, filled with dignitaries from everywhere, including people who had been part of the struggle itself against apartheid and who had supported that struggle, he made the point of thanking his jailers and pointing out that of all of the distinguished VIPs who were there, he was most grateful that these men, with whom he had exchanged words of recognition and acknowledgement of the other's humanity over the course of that long imprisonment, could be there as well. As we think about Nelson Mandela, it brings to mind very much to me Tom Lantos, because here were 2 men who had seen the worst that humanity can offer, who had been objectified, denied their right to be a Jew in Hungary during the Holocaust or a black man in South Africa during apartheid. They had every reason to come out, if not embittered, cynical, believing that for the rest of their lives, the only thing that would matter was acquiring power, being able to demonstrate their influence, especially as against those who had denied them the right to be who they were. What always struck me about Nelson Mandela and Tom Lantos was the joy, the curiosity, the enthusiasm for life that they brought with them out of the depths of such suffering. And Mandela told many people that he had to learn to forgive, and he had to leave his anger behind when he walked out of prison on February 11th, 1990, or he would have remained a prisoner of his own feelings, of his own resentments. And Tom Lantos, who escaped the worst example of humanity, decided to become an advocate for anyone, anywhere, who was facing the kind of fear that comes with standing up for yourself and your fellow men and women. So we honor 2 great men by being here today. 2 men with unconquerable souls. And we also have just acknowledged other brave human rights activists who have received this prize and who stand before us, because each of them has also known what it's like to come up against governments and powerful forces who are determined to squeeze the hope from your heart, to imprison your mind, to break your spirit. Chen Guangcheng stood up to that kind of oppression escaped from it as Tom escaped from the Holocaust and ran toward freedom. And I'm very proud that the United States was the place he ran toward. That it was our country, thanks to people like Tom Lantos and others whom I see in this audience, who have held high the banner of human rights as not being something given to you, but something you are endowed with. And Paul Rusesabagin, thank you, because you stood your ground. You stood in the face of another horror that was almost unimaginable, the horror of genocide in our time. And you saved and protected others in a great example not only of courage but of compassion. So as we gather here, we are reminded of those who have given so much to ensure that the hope that is represented in Tom's legacy lives on. This foundation really embodies Tom's spirit. And it's quite humbling for people like Madeleine Albright, my dear friend, and I, to know that secretaries of state come and go, but what remains is that profound commitment to making a difference in whatever position we find ourselves, and standing up and speaking out for those who might otherwise never have a voice. I'm deeply honored to be given this award, particularly on behalf of two causes near and dear to my heart: women's rights and internet freedom. I want to acknowledge publicly the great work that Tamika, Tom's grandson, did for me in the State Department and continues to do in that intersection of civil society and governments, and how we can help people help themselves to make sure their voices continue to be heard. I also think it's critical that we look broadly, globally, about why this mission that many of us embrace for the full participation of women and girls in their societies is so important. It's not just the right thing to do. It is not just a recognition that women and girls, just like men and boys, deserve the opportunity to live up to their own God-given potential. It is because we know that where women and girls participate in economies, economic growth is greater than it would be without them. Where women and girls are given the chance to be educated and to get the health care they deserve to have, we know that societies benefit. Where women and girls can participate in peacemaking and peace building as full members of societies trying to resolve conflicts, we know that resolution is more likely to be sustained. So it's a great honor for me to have this award, but it just is a reminder of how much more we have yet ahead of us to accomplish, to make sure that Tom's dreams, Tom's life, the examples of the award recipients with us and those unable to come, like the Dalai Lama and Elie Wiesel, bring out in each of us our own commitments to what we will do to further the cause of human rights, universal human rights for every man, woman, boy, and girl in the world. It is certainly what Tom would expect us to do, to hold high his ideals. And by accepting this award and knowing that Tom would not let me off the hook, otherwise. It is something that I will continue to be committed to in every way that I can, with every fiber of my being, because the kind of world we want is a world in which the Nelson Mandelas and the Tom Lantoses can be proud. Thank you very much.
I'm very honored to have the opportunity to say a few final words, and before I do, I also want to acknowledge all of the ambassadors who have joined us today. We're very grateful to have your presence here. I hope all of you feel, as I certainly do, that it has been a great privilege to be here today. We have had the chance to honor and be inspired by a truly extraordinary woman, not just of our time, but of history. I feel very confident that my grandfather, who was one of my personal heroes, would have been incredibly gratified to see Secretary Clinton receive this Human Rights Prize that bears his name. He loved and admired her for so many reasons: her intelligence and determination, her tenacity and strength, her willingness to step forward and lead, and perhaps most of all, her compassion in taking time to reach back to help those seeking to follow. As we leave this gathering today, I hope it is with a renewed sense of commitment to follow in the footsteps of these two remarkable people, Tom Lantos and Hillary Clinton. With such role models, I am sure that we can each find a way to be a little braver, a little kinder, a little more determined in standing up for the rights of our fellow human beings. In other words, a little more like Tom and Hillary. I believe that we all come into this world with the power and potential to be brave, to be determined, to be champions for justice and dignity for all mankind. A little more than 2 years ago, my husband and I welcomed our daughter, Tom's 7th great-grandchild at that time, into the world on a day that was deeply meaningful for us and our entire family. Nellie was born on August 4th, 2011, which would have been the 99th birthday of Raoul Wallenberg, a hero of the Holocaust who risked his own life countless times to save the lives of Jews in Hungary. Nellie came to us on this day with a feisty and fearless personality. In all honesty, I sometimes tremble slightly at the thought of crossing her. But more importantly, she came to us with a legacy of the selfless pursuit of social justice, freedom, and liberty for all. Because of the legacy of people like Raoul Wallenberg, like Nelson Mandela, and like her own great-grandfather, Nellie will grow up with the opportunity and responsibility to be actively engaged in the good fight to make this world better for all people, regardless of who they are and regardless of what circumstances they may be in. And because of the example of women, like her great-grandmother and like Secretary Clinton, who we honor here today, she will never have to doubt that she can be a powerful force for good in this world. Thank you, Secretary Clinton, for inspiring every person here today and millions throughout the world. Thank you for the inspiration you will surely provide for the rising generation, including my own Nellie. And I want to extend my deep thanks to each and every one of you for being with us here on this very special occasion. Thank you.